Hello everyone. This is about the December 4 solar eclipse, total solar eclipse, and I'm starting you off here with the partial lunar eclipse 2 weeks ago, and you will immediately see why. Look at the degrees. Mid Sagittarius was the rising sign in Greenwich, the global chart, and Hygeia here was high up, Huya and the ascendant, the black moon here at the descendant, and the sun opposing the moon at 27 degrees 17, here the moon in Taurus. Now let's look at this. This is now December 3rd. That is just a day prior to the eclipse, when the sun was entering hexagram 5, waiting, which I touched on a little bit in my last video, which is really a highly interesting hexagram. And before we get into the eclipse, let me just reiterate here quickly that hexagram, because it's really powerful information. So Richard Rath, who writes on the gene keys, which is basically a new way of describing the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, he calls it impatience, patience, timelessness. Now the traditional name of this hexagram is waiting. And let's first go with the traditional one. Let me just adjust this a little bit so we can read it. So basically it is heaven is below and water is above. It's the clouds which are getting ready, but there's no rain yet. This hexagram shows that the clouds in the heavens giving no rain to refresh all that grows and to provide mankind with food and drink. So it's a time of getting ready, of preparing. The rain will come in its own time. We cannot make it come, we have to wait for it. And now this is the setting of the eclipse, so we can expect whatever is now primed will take a little while to unfold, and that little while might be sooner than later. I see the high point of this crisis we are getting head on deeper into to escalate in the next few weeks, and the real breakthrough will be between mid-January and mid-February. That's when we will see the worldwide global revolution, when people finally will dig their heels and demand for things to change in a big way. So this is what has been prophesied about in many cultures for thousands of years. This is the time we're in right now, and the charts which I will show you totally support that. It's biblical times on all levels. So anyway, it's a time of getting ready. The idea of waiting is further suggested by the attributes of the two trigrams: strength within, danger without. Strength in the face of danger does not plunge ahead, but it bides its time, whereas weakness in the face of danger grows agitated and has not the patience to wait. So here we go. The strength is to dig your heels in, to wait, just to be yourself and get ready. The second line now, where the eclipse is in, and this is the Richard Wilhelm translation, which was the first translation of the Chinese Book of Changes. He was a scholar and lived in China, and he did that in the 19th century. The I Ching, for those of you unfamiliar with it, it is the 64 combinations of 6 different lines, some broken, some solid, yin and yang, and they are exactly matching the gene code of our of us humans. That was the great surprise in the 1950s when we finally understood the genetic code, how DNA is structured. It is exactly the same way. We have 64 codons, 64 different combinations of these acids, which are the building blocks of the DNA. This is a powerful, powerful synchronicity here with the Chinese Book of Changes. So the 9 in the second place, that is the line which is activated by the sun and the moon, as was last night. As I'm recording this, is the 4th of December. As I said, this is just less than 12 hours after the eclipse. Danger gradually comes closer. Sand is near the bank of the river and the water means danger. Disagreements crop up. General unrest can easily develop in such times, and we lay the blame on one another. He who stays calm will succeed in making things go well in the end. Slander will be silenced if we do not gratify it with injured retorts. Yes, keep the calm. Don't use your energy yet. This is the time to wait, and things will change soon. As we're getting through the next few days, by the 8th actually, that's when things will change energies in a big way again. That's when the sun enters hexagram 26, which is the next one. I'm quickly showing you here. This is according to the human design system, the overlay of the 64 hexagrams. And here you see it. This is hexagram 5, between 11, 22, 30, Sag and 17. And then this is really the heart of Sag, hexagram 26, taming power of the great. This is when we are able to bring everything into line and attempt the big attack, if you want, to push through. So this is then also the time of another series of powerful alignments amongst the heliocentric Mars-Saturn square and the geocentric Mars-Jupiter square, which are within hours of each other on the 8th of December. And a whole bunch more. The waxing half moon will be in that hexagram. Mercury will be conjuncting the galactic center. Mars will enter Sagittarius in that window. Yes, things will be amping up. People's resistance is really coming to the forefront by then against all these tyrannical restrictions. But again, it is because we have situation as this. This is really the fuel for reawakening our human race, and it is seemingly necessary to get to the extreme point, to the cliff right before you fall down into the abyss, the very last moment when people will fully wake up and take their power back. So let's now get into charts. First, I would like to look at the root chart of this eclipse family, which is Saros series 152, which started in 1805 with the first eclipse. And here you see the first eclipse of that series was in 1805, and since we had a few, right now we are here at this one, December 4, 2021. Now, what I found really interesting is this one, which I had highlighted here already. This is just days prior to the Carrington flare. Those of you who are familiar with that enormous solar flare which sparked auroras for 3 consequent days, which, if it would happen today, would take out all our electronics, all our satellites would be doomed. That's the big threat out there for all those artificial intelligence equipments, you could say, all their gadgets, all their electronics, that would melt down in no time. And it is the initial spark. That's one thing often which is misunderstood. There is 2 different impacts big solar flares have. The very first one is the most strong one in terms of radiation, as it's an X-ray flare the sun releases, which always, when big flares happen, there's a radio blackout, which means all the transmissions are interrupted for a while. And if it's really big, then yes, then all these electronic equipments will be fried. So I found that really interesting that this big solar flare happened just days after that eclipse, the 4th eclipse of this series. So now let's have a peek more into the birth chart of this series. And I did cast the chart for Greenwich again, the global chart. So first of all, Sun and Moon were here in Leo, the Sun sign as such, and also the ascendant here in Leo for Greenwich. So there's lots of Leo energy in here. That fire of the Sun. And now what is very interesting here is that Jupiter Neptune Hygeia conjunction. And we get to this in a minute, how this fits in with our present eclipse. Jupiter Neptune here in the end of Scorpio. This is super interesting too. Chiron at the North Node, together with Vertex Point and Haumea here close by. So Chiron at the North Node is an energy which pushes us to evolve. Get your things together, get your act together. This is a time of not hesitating, I would say, and resolve the issues at hand. Pallas is here up high with Vesta. Vesta, that's what we are asked by existence to do. It is the service to the higher dimensional self, who we are, keeping the flame alive. Pallas is intelligence. The patterns become clear and obvious. And Jupiter, Neptune here with Hygeia. It's actually interesting that we are heading into a Jupiter-Neptune conjunction very, very soon in the next few months. This is building up as we're proceeding here in Pisces, again in a water sign. Jupiter-Neptune can mean many things. It can mean a great vision, a wonderful new dimension of expansion. The future is bright in that sense, at least from that one side looked at. It also can mean an abundance of water and of Neptunian energy as such, which could mean delusion and deception, and what we all are experiencing too, with Pisces, Neptune, and Jupiter both. So this whole theme might be amping up still a bit more. Now, why am I emphasizing all this? You will see it immediately when we now go to the chart of the eclipse. Now, this first chart here is the greatest eclipse and the chart is cast for that place where the eclipse was having its maximum. And let me show you this one here. That's the one. Okay, here we go. So that's Antarctica. So this eclipse was only visible in Antarctica. It was a total solar eclipse. And the greatest eclipse is here at the center of this curve. That's over several hours how it plays out as the moon is coming in between Earth and the Sun, which is always an imbalance of energy. That's, I guess, the most important thing to recognize about eclipses is it's an imbalance of energy. The Sun is blocked out. That means the moon's energy becomes predominant. And whenever the balance is disturbed, this is it's like a fresh seed is planted. There's a crack created, and in this crack a new seed is planted. With that powerful new moon, an eclipse comes with. And here we have it. That's how it looked. Now, what is interesting is that Jupiter was rising. This is very special. Jupiter has been the key planet for the whole year 2021. It is that fast shift and change. Jupiter is expansive. Jupiter has the greatest rotational momentum within our whole solar system. It's actually over 60% of the rotational momentum is owned by Jupiter. This is super important. The radial momentum is what really triggers change. Jupiter is the biggest planet. It's about 140,000 kilometers in diameter. That's about 12 Earths you could fit into it, just along its equator if you want. And so Jupiter spins once in 10 hours around itself. Jupiter is the 5th planet from the Sun. 2021 is a 5-year, and you see the connection there too. And with this eclipse bringing Jupiter to the ascendant in such a prominent place, this is just saying, well, the thick end is just to come. We are still in for it. We are just getting ready for the real moments of change, of breakthrough, of transformation. And Jupiter in Aquarius, naturally, together with Saturn, that is the remodeling of our whole society. Jupiter and Saturn being the two social planets, two which are responsible for the big shifts in societies and the big revolutions and transformations. Again, just reminding you, on December 21st, that's just about a year ago, Jupiter and Saturn had their big conjunction here in the 1st degree of Aquarius, which was ringing in the new paradigm, you could say, which can either go this way or that way. As we know, it can go either towards big reset, which was planned long ago. If you do your research, Agenda 21, Agenda 30, all these things, and for many, many years these plans were in the making. And now here comes in the big awakening, the Great Awakening, which was brought in with that rift in 2016-17, when unexpectedly two things happened. When Brexit was voted in by the English people, and a few months later President Trump came into office. That really threw all their systems off their tracks, and since then these two events, which I pointed out then already, these were really the starting points of where we are now today, that everything got out of order, which allowed for the Great Awakening to come in as a big new possibility. And as things go, I guess the big awakening, the Great Awakening, is what will be winning. All looks like that. This is just their last efforts. It's a beast already deadly wounded, which has its last spasms and its last dangerous moves, and you better get away from its tentacles and stay safe in that sense. And it will be by us just keeping to ourselves, doing what is right, and not bending to that ridiculousness. And that is all in this chart too. So first of all, Sagittarius energies. And Sagittarius is an extreme sign, I would call it. You could call it a race car driver, or a freestyle climber, going vertical and facing extreme challenges just for the thrill of it. That's Sagittarius in its purity. So and this is what I wanted to link in here. This, we now go back quickly to this root chart of this present eclipse family, this eclipse family's root chart, I should say. So here again you have Jupiter, Neptune, Hygeia, and look at where they fall here in this chart here, right at midheaven. You can't make these things up. This is the time which has been set in stone since ages for this big breakthrough to occur, to shine, with Mars here. Mars Jupiter square, as I said, will be exact just a few days from now. So things are getting intense. It's really amping up. We're only, what is that now, 17 days away from winter solstice. And many people said it, and I'm not the only one, 2012, that was just the inversion of the numbers. Really, 2021 is the year of that big shift, which was predicted. 2012 was the test run. So we had a little more time, 9 years more, to get fully ready, to get our act together. And sure enough, we didn't really had it together yet, but I mean, it was definitely, we were more ready than then, I would say. I guess we were as ready as we had to be. Interesting here also Deucalion, I mentioned several times, here in conjunction with Mars, also in this area of the zodiac. Deucalion, another name for this character is Noah, who is given the information to prepare for something unseen and unknown, yet to look ahead and to get everything ready for some event or turn of events which nobody saw coming yet. So that's how I could say many more things here. But let me just say, let me just keep going on now with my charts, because it was really a great series of events, and you will see there was actually 2 occultations surrounding this solar eclipse a day prior, and I have this. Actually, I just was tempted to look it up, and here we go. So these are. I copied that out of the internet at some point. It's. I guess it's still, one can find that. It's a Spanish site. It says Occultaciones de planetas y estrellas de primera magnitud por la Luna en el siglo XXI. So that means all the occultations of planets and major stars of prime magnitude through the moon in the 21st century. And I did download that and copy it, and here this is now, if we go into 2021. So what stands out here in 2021? Here you see all the occultations of the year 2021, which means the moon passing in front of one of the planets or major stars. What stands out is that this whole year it's mostly personal planets. Pretty much almost over 90% personal planets which were occulted. And as we are right now, this is there was a Mars occultation on the 3rd, and just hours after the solar eclipse was a Mercury occultation. I cast a chart for those events. Okay, so this is extremely special. Also, I should say that the moon was as close to the Earth as it can be during these 3 events. So this is the solar eclipse. You see that was exact 7:33:23 a.m. in Universal or Greenwich time. The moon was not yet totally new, which is another interesting observation to make about eclipses. Sometimes it's never exactly at the moment of new moon when the greatest eclipse occurs. This is the first thing to say, because naturally the alignment is never exactly perfect. So if this would be the Earth and this would be the Sun, so the moon is always a little bit off center, even at the moment of its greatest of the greatest eclipse naturally. So this can be 10-15 minutes prior or after new moon. What is interesting, and this has been my observation, when eclipses are at its greatest short before new moon, means this is still a closing in event. It's getting more intense. The energies are building up still. It's like the 2 planets have not fully aligned yet. There's this compression zone. So that's a particular thing to watch in general about eclipses. Let me just jump ahead before we analyze this chart a little more. I want to show you. This is the same chart heliocentrically. We get back to that. So 1.5 hours about later, Mercury and Huya conjuncted. Mercury and Huya, okay, I have the wrong setting here, sorry, let me just change this. This is the heliocentric, this was a geocentric conjunction. Let me just change this here. Okay. Here we go. Mercury and Huya. Yes, Huya is an important part of this eclipse energy. And I mentioned Huya several times. Huya is a very, very important player at our present time. It's a Plutino, means it's in the family of Pluto, shares a similar orbital period. Huya's energy asks us to open ourselves to transform fixed patterns. How about that? Fixed patterns from past lives, from our routines, which we are still embedded in. Freeing ourselves and transition to more flexible expressions. Huya has been observed showing up during psychotherapic phases, clients going through psychotherapy and trying to get to the core of what is not right. Getting rid, eliminating of a mental virus. And this is information which was put on the internet by Amable, which is one of the great researchers on these new planets. So Mercury aligning with this Plutino, and this is 9:07 a.m. now, so that's just 1.5 hours after the eclipse. The eclipse still going. Solar eclipse goes for hours on end, probably about 6 to 8 hours. So we are still in the middle of the eclipse here, just past the center. And then 9:59 a.m., that is when the moon was most closest to the Earth in 1 month's time. So you see that the eclipse happened 2.5 hours before the moon was exactly closest to Earth. So the moon is super powerful, super big. The closer it is, naturally it is bigger. And the moon, again, to repeat myself, has not just occulted the sun, but also Mars a day prior, which I don't have the chart here to show you. And then we have the Mercury black moon opposition, and that was 10:35, and then 12:44, that was when the Mercury occultation was at its peak, when Mercury disappeared behind the moon. So you see that this is unprecedented. This is very, very special, and we are dealing here with a super powerful celestial event. And again, this is a seed. Don't expect things to happen immediately. This has reset the whole patterns. A seed was planted, as I said, a crack opened in that imbalance of energy of sun and moon. A new creation. It's like a scar which is carved by the path of the shadow the moon makes on our planet, which opens a. It's like you're gardening. I have that image, and you're carving a trench, and then you're putting the seeds into. That's exactly what happens. So this is the whole series of events which happened within a few hours. Mars occultation, let's just go quickly backwards. That was 12:44 p.m. all universal time, or Greenwich Mean Time. 10:35 when the black moon, which is the midpoint around which the moon oscillates. The moon has a really wild motion. Actually, if you would be surprised to know that if you have an astrology program, which whatever uses up about 8 megabytes or so, with all the different equations to calculate the different planets' orbits, the moon takes up about half of that space from bytes. So about half of the program is just to calculate the moon's path. The moon's path is super complex. So the moon kind of is swinging around this axis where it's farthest and closest from Earth, and the black moon is the median, the axis around which, and it is my observation too that that median, that center axis, is where things are most crystallized in that sense. So here you have okay, this is a Mercury and the black moon, right? Okay, Mercury here 1524, the black moon 1524. Okay, now let's go back to the eclipse, because the eclipse, the solar eclipse, the total solar eclipse is the main event, and we are looking now here at the Greenwich chart, the global chart. Now, so first of all, yes, let's just zoom back here quickly to show you also the connection with the lunar eclipse, which happened 2 weeks ago. We have pretty much the same configuration, satirizing the black moon at the descendant and the ascendant here with Huya, and this is actually also the great attractor here at 1420 or something in Sagittarius. That is the confluence point of all galaxies in our local cluster. As it says, a point in the sky of great attraction where everything is pulled towards. So this lunar eclipse, and lunar eclipses and solar eclipses, naturally, they always work in pairs. It's like they come together and they are molding, they are the two polarities. And again, I just want to say one more thing here, is that this was full moon number 3 of 8, which all have exact aspects to the galactic center. The galactic center at 2709 Sagittarius. So this is again unprecedented. This shows in a very simple way that this is a most powerful spell of time, about 8 months, from September 20th, 2021, all through April 16, I guess it is 2022, when we have that last full moon in that exact aspect to the galactic center. By then it will be a trine. So this is showing that, yes, we are in a very, very special window here. And if you have listened to my earlier videos, you know there's other things which are also showing in the human design. For example, that window between September and mid-January, particularly, where we have this powerful connection to nature, and nature is really which is breaking through, which is overtaking that influence of artificial intelligence and of all that disheartened and dark energy which is not in favor of life. So life itself is taking over and saying, no more, further we go. This is the line in the sand we have drawn. And we are now really coming to the climax of this. So, yes, now let's go back to the event of last night here. The solar eclipse at its maximum. Antares, Aldebaran, the two royal stars, they're around 10 degrees, Sagittarius and Gemini. They're war-like energies of clash, of opposition, of bringing out that I would say intensity and the readiness to fight for what is right, very, very much in line of Sagittarius as such. As the black moon again and the lunar node still are in that axis too, the farthest place where the moon is, the closest where it is here on the other side, always they're opposing each other naturally. So all in all, this is, and then it's just short before sunrise, another indication that yes, it is something new is dawning. So the eclipse was dawning in Greenwich. If we would be able to see it from there, naturally it was not possible to see it from there because of the geometry. The moon was off kind of that direct axis of the Earth and the Sun's center, and very only visible on the South Pole, as I showed you. But still, it is within the extension of this line where we would have seen the sunrise and the sun being occulted at this time. On a general note, I was often thinking about what does it really mean, the eclipse? It means that the moon is occulting, the sun is inhibiting the sun's energy to come through, is hiding Mercury and Mars too, as I showed you just the day prior and a few hours after the eclipse. So it definitely means that at first things get more intense, also hidden. That's an interesting aspect of an occultation, that this energy, this planet is hidden away from us. So Mercury meaning communication and information flow, and Mercury also is heading into a square with Neptune, which is already in orb here. And Mercury is also here in square to Orcus, and this whole group here of planets, which is actually squaring the ascendant-descendant here, which I have to mention too, Pallas, Ocyroe, and Nessus. And this is also coming to a head here, this conjunction, as Pallas has been activating these two outer planets. Ocyroe is a centaur, Nessus as well. They are having longer orbits. Pallas is the fastest one, is an asteroid. So Pallas is activating these two for the third time now in the coming weeks. Ocyroe is the one which amplifies, which makes things bigger and brighter. Nessus is the pathological behavior we are dealing with on a very particular note. This is all squaring the ascendant-descendant here, and the lunar eclipse and the solar eclipse here point 12 degrees and Earth on the other side. So again, this just shows that, yes, it's getting more intense at first. And then, yes, this stands out. I guess everybody can see this Chiron here at the 4th house cusp of this eclipse on a global scale. Chiron in Aries between 2018 and 2025 for 7 years. Chiron is asking us to transform ourselves. That's what it basically means in Aries. We are the change. If we do the right thing, everything around us will fall in place. It's all about us. And here at the source point, that's all it's about right now. To clean up your act, to become more real, more authentic, to embrace your shadow, to heal your wounds, to accept that you don't know everything, that there's still much to learn and much to shift, as we indicated, Huya here, Huya, that important input of understanding that yes, we have to change, transition from a dark past into more flexible expressions, eliminating a mental virus, all that implanted false information we have to flush out and get rid of. So that's all kind of in this one position of Chiron. If you boil it down to one fractal, it already says it all there. Interesting also that opposition here with Maki. Maki is a creation force. Actually, from what I have seen, it is about manifestation, bringing things into 3D reality, and Salacia, that long-standing opposition here between those two Kuiper belt objects. I mentioned that too several times. Between 2017 and 2034, for 17 consequent years, these two are forming, I guess, something like 35 oppositions or more. And the center point when they will be heliocentrically opposing each other, which is only once, is in 2025. So this is kind of the center point of these 17 years of remodeling our world. This is a big process, naturally, and we are just in the first third of it, if you want. Salacia, in my understanding, is that tantric energy of enjoyment, of enjoying everything, of enjoying even the darkest and the most difficult parts of our lives. This definitely helps to keep up our good spirits and keep digging and going in the right direction. So let's just quickly go through these next charts. It's more kind of to add on a few more facets to what we said already. So this is the heliocentric chart of that moment when the eclipse was at its maximum, and again it's a parallel transference of the house system as it would be observed in Greenwich, at that place where the umbilical cord is attached to Earth. You could see that in an allegorical way. The zero meridian, which divides Earth in an eastern and a western hemisphere, and that .51 degrees and 29 minutes north of the equator, which is an exact septile, a seventh of a circle. Actually, the exact septile is 51.26 and a fraction. So Greenwich is in that sense in a very, very special place, and that's why I choose it as the anchor point for the collective global charts. The 7 is the number which opens us to the infinite, the only one of the 7 of the 9 digits. If you divide 1 by 7, you get a never-ending tale of numbers, and they're unpredictable. So it is really that infinity which is encapsulated in the 7, which makes it the perfect opening for that higher dimensional infinity to be funneled into Earth. Hygeia, Vesta, here, very, very prominently placed. Hygeia, again, that is, it's all about health and well-being. And the recreation, manifestation of something better, of that serendipity, which Hygeia also represents in Libra, and particularly in that segment where hexagram 18 is located. 18, work on what has been spoiled, meaning to work through the mess and make it better and clean it up and bring it all back to a better place. Vesta, rising. The whole thing is a holy journey, a holy assignment. There's something highly spiritual in this. It is a spiritual war, and we are right at the peak of it. We are arriving at that most critical, final, decisive moment of it. Jupiter squaring, here heliocentrically, and again heliocentric astrology, that's the pure energy, that's the background energy, that's what we are feeding on. Think of the sun is emitting these photons and particles. 8 minutes it takes for these to travel to Earth. We are breathing them, we are living off, that's our food basically, the sun's energy. So this is the original energetic source we are feeding on. Jupiter here already quite a bit in Pisces, heliocentrically speaking, squaring the ascendant, descendant again. This is particularly squaring Ceres, which is also here close at the ascendant, descendant axis. Ceres, the earth goddess of new creation and of taking care, of loving what is, the unconditional love. That's where Ceres is strongest, the mothering principle. Jupiter, again, interestingly here placed very powerfully. Yeah, no surprise here. So let's just move on to the next chart, which is then the Mercury-Huya conjunction with the galactic center rising here at 2709 again. For those who are not familiar with that point yet, that is the kind of the umbilical cord, if you want, towards the greater cosmos, towards our what you call it, the greater sun, the central sun, that's what they call it. Next one, the moon exactly at closest to Earth at its perigee. See, that's where it was, 13 degrees 48, just 1 degree past the exact eclipse new moon point. Mercury black moon opposition, with the moon here conjunct Mercury, opposing the black moon, and then and Mars in midheaven. So yeah, Mars is extremely strong these days, and as I said, it enters Sagittarius just a week from now, I guess around the it is on the 13th, actually, on the 13th. That's then the center moment of the occultation, of Mercury being hidden from us for a while. And I guess I leave it at this. I had more charts prepared, but it's already an hour, so let's close it for now, and I will do another one very soon, I promise you. It's just too exciting, and I'm now back home, as you probably can see. It's my regular settings. I'm back from travel, and I have lots of wonderful and very encouraging experiences. Met many great people who are all on the same track and who are all knowing that we are what really is going on this planet right now, which is extremely encouraging. So thank you for listening and joining, and talk to you soon. Okay.